In the year 3147, peace was rare in the galaxy. Hundreds of civilizations had risen and fallen in endless wars, but one empire stood above all. The Valari Empire, a proud and powerful race known for their strength, intelligence, and beauty. Their technology was unmatched, their fleets unstoppable, and their ruler, Queen Avaris, was both feared and respected across the stars. Yet, when the Valari Empire met humanity, something unexpected happened. Humans were new to the stars. They had no grand fleets, no vast empire, and no ancient power. What they had, however, was something the Valari had long forgotten: determination. The first encounter between the two species had led to misunderstandings, then to small conflicts, and finally to a short but intense war. When the smoke cleared, both sides had suffered great losses. But instead of seeking revenge, the humans sent an offer, not of surrender but of peace. Queen Avaris found it strange. In Valari history, no defeated race had ever asked for peace so calmly. And among the peace delegation was a human who caught her attention immediately. Sol Rivers. He was not a soldier. He wasn't even a politician. He was introduced simply as an engineer from Earth, someone who had helped design the human evacuation drives that saved millions during the war. He looked ordinary, plain brown hair, calm eyes, and a quiet expression. But there was something about the way he stood, as if he carried no fear in the presence of gods. When the council meeting began, Valari generals spoke with pride and anger. They demanded that humans submit fully to Valari law, but Sol stepped forward, his voice steady. "Your Majesty," he said respectfully, "peace doesn't begin with surrender. It begins with trust." The chamber fell silent. None had spoken so directly to the Queen before. Queen Avaris studied him with sharp eyes. "And what makes you think you can speak of peace, human?" she asked. "You are a race of children in the stars. What can you offer the Valari Empire?" Sol's answer was calm but strong. "We offer understanding. We offer cooperation. And perhaps we offer something you have forgotten: hope." The words were simple, but they carried a strange weight. Even the Valari nobles stopped whispering. That night, when Avaris retired to her private chamber, she couldn't stop thinking about the human's words. She had seen many diplomats, many warriors, but none who spoke with such quiet conviction. There was no arrogance in him, no fear either. Only sincerity. Days later, she summoned him again. "Tell me, human," she said, "why do your people seek peace when you could easily be destroyed?" Sol smiled slightly. "Because we have already seen enough destruction, Your Majesty. We believe peace is stronger than pride." Those words touched something in her heart. Pride had always guided her people, yet pride had also caused endless wars. For the first time in many years, Queen Avaris began to wonder if strength alone truly defined greatness. After weeks of discussion, both sides agreed to sign a treaty. But the Queen wanted to make it more than a simple document. She wanted a true symbol of unity between their species, something that would be remembered across galaxies. And so she did something that shocked both empires. She announced that she would marry a human. The Valari nobles were outraged. "A queen cannot marry one of them," shouted General Kareth, her most trusted commander. "They are weak, short-lived, and unfit for the throne." But Avaris silenced him with a look. "If we are to build peace, it must begin with trust. I will choose the human who understands it best." Her choice stunned everyone. She chose Sol Rivers. The day of the royal announcement was broadcast across 100 star systems. The Valari people were divided. Some saw it as a noble act of peace, others as an insult to their royal bloodline. Humans, too, were confused. Why would a queen of such power marry an engineer? When Sol was summoned to the throne world, he stood before the queen once again. "You understand what this means," Avaris said. "This union will not be easy. My people will not welcome you." "I understand," Sol replied quietly. "But I do not seek to be loved, only to do what is right." The queen tilted her head slightly, curious. "And what do you gain from this marriage, human?" Sol looked into her eyes and said softly, "A chance for peace, and a promise that no child, human or Valari, will have to fight the same war again." Avaris felt something stir inside her, admiration, and perhaps something deeper she could not name. The ceremony was grand and bright, filled with golden light from the twin suns of Valara Prime. The queen wore silver armor woven with starlight crystals, while Sol wore the formal robe of the Valari court. its deep blue fabric lined with glowing threads. As they stood before the Valari Council, the hall echoed with ancient words of unity, but even as the people watched, whispers filled the air. "Look at him," one noble hissed. "He looks so fragile." "He will never understand our ways," another said. "A human cannot be our king." Sol heard them, but he didn't react. His face remained calm. When it was time for the vow, Queen Avaris placed her hand on his heart. "Do you swear loyalty to the Valari people and to peace everlasting?" "I swear," Sol said, "to protect peace, even if I must stand alone to do it." The Queen's expression softened for a brief moment. There was truth in his words, truth that even her strongest warriors could not fake. After the ceremony, Sol was given quarters in the royal palace. The walls shimmered with living light and servants attended to his every need. But Sol was uncomfortable with luxury. Instead, he spent his time walking through the gardens, speaking with workers and studying Valari culture. At first, the court mocked him. "He reads like a scholar," they said, "not like a ruler." But Avaris noticed something. Wherever Sol went, people began to listen. The palace staff, the young officers, even children, they gathered to hear him speak about Earth, about its oceans, forests, and stars. His words carried warmth that the cold halls of Valari often lacked. One evening, as the suns were setting, Avaris found him standing on the balcony, looking at the sky. "You miss your world," she said. He nodded. "Sometimes. But this world is beautiful too. The way your suns light the clouds. It reminds me that beauty exists everywhere." She smiled faintly. "You speak as if you see more than others." Sol looked at her with calm eyes. "Maybe I just look longer." For the first time in years, the Queen laughed quietly. "You are strange, human, strange, but honest." From that day on, something began to change between them. She invited him to attend council meetings, where he offered simple but clever advice. When colonies threatened rebellion, Sol suggested trade agreements instead of war. When supply routes failed, he proposed solutions that saved resources and lives. The nobles were shocked. The Queen was impressed, yet one man watched with growing suspicion: General Kareth. He had served the Queen for decades and didn't trust the human's calmness. "No one is that humble," he muttered to himself. "He hides something." Kareth began to investigate Sol's past, but what he found only deepened the mystery. Records from Earth showed Sol once worked on a secret human project, Project Dawnfire. All details were erased from public archives. It was as if the project never existed. The general's eyes narrowed. "So," he whispered, "our human has secrets." That night, as stars glowed above Valara Prime, Queen Avaris stood by her window, thinking about the strange human who had changed her empire's destiny. She had chosen him for peace, yet she sensed there was something greater hidden within him. A quiet strength she could not yet explain. And far below, in the garden's soft starlight, Sol looked up at the twin suns fading behind the horizon. His eyes glimmered faintly, as if reflecting light that came from within. No one in the Empire yet knew it. Not the Queen, not the generals, not even Sol himself, but his true strength was only beginning to awaken. Life in the royal palace was not easy for Sol Rivers. Though he was now the Queen's husband, many in the Valari Empire still saw him as an outsider, a human who didn't belong among the stars. Everywhere he went, he could feel the eyes following him. Servants bowed politely but whispered behind his back. Nobles pretended to respect him but laughed in secret. They called him the quiet king without power, but Sol didn't let their words affect him. Instead of hiding away, he worked harder to learn about his new home. He studied the Valari language until he could speak it almost perfectly. He learned about their history, their traditions, and even the small details of their daily life. Sometimes, when he walked through the palace gardens, he stopped to speak with the gardeners, engineers, and guards. He asked about their work, listened to their problems, and always offered kind words. Slowly, many of the lower-ranked Valari began to respect him. Queen Avaris noticed this change. Though she didn't say it aloud, she was quietly impressed. Most foreign rulers tried to gain power through wealth or authority, but Sol gained loyalty through kindness. One morning, Avaris invited Sol to join a council meeting. The Empire was facing a new crisis. Several Valari colonies on the Outer Rim had begun to rebel, refusing to send resources to the capital. The generals demanded immediate punishment. They must be reminded of the Queen's strength, shouted General Kareth.
Send the fleet!
But Sul, sitting quietly at the side of the chamber, raised his hand. If I may, Your Majesty? Avarice nodded. Speak. Sul stood and faced the council. If you send warships, he said calmly, the colonies will see the Empire as a threat, not a home. They will fight harder, and the war will spread. And what do you suggest, human? Kareth said sharply. You think we can buy loyalty with words? No, Sul replied, but we can earn it with understanding. Perhaps the colonies are not angry at the Queen, but afraid. Maybe they need to be heard, not punished. Avarice looked thoughtful. And how would you solve it? Let me visit them, Sul said. I will speak with their leaders, listen to their problems, and find a way to make them trust you again. The generals were shocked. That's madness, one of them cried. They could capture you. But Avarice raised her hand for silence. Her golden eyes studied Sul for a moment. Very well, she said at last. You have my permission. Kareth's jaw tightened. Your Majesty, it is decided, Avarice said firmly. He goes under royal protection. The journey to the colony world Terran 9 was long and tense. The people there were poor and angry, believing the Empire had forgotten them. When Sul arrived, there were no cheers, no royal welcome. The local leaders stood cold and silent as he entered their meeting hall. I know you do not trust me, Sul began, but I did not come to rule over you. I came to listen. At first, no one answered. Then slowly, one leader spoke. We have worked for years, sending resources to the capital. But our children starve while the nobles feast, Sul nodded. Then the system is wrong. Let us fix it. He spent days talking with miners, farmers, and engineers. He listened, learned, and carefully wrote new agreements, trade routes, fair exchanges, and shared technology. When he returned to Valara Prime, the rebellion was already fading. The colonies had accepted peace. Avarice called a grand council to announce the success. The colonies have returned to loyalty, she declared, and they did so not through fear but through trust. My husband has shown that wisdom can win where weapons fail. Even the nobles who once mocked Sol could not deny the results. That night, Avarice invited Sol to dine with her in the Crystal Hall. The stars shone through the transparent walls, filling the room with silver light. You surprise me again, Sol Rivers, she said softly. You speak little, but your words carry great power. Sul smiled faintly. Power isn't always about strength, Your Majesty. Sometimes it's about listening. She studied him quietly, her eyes searching his calm face. You are unlike anyone I have met, she said. You do not seek control, yet you change everything around you. Sul looked away, his voice gentle. I've seen what pride can destroy. I don't want that for us. For a moment neither spoke. The silence between them was peaceful, almost warm. Then Avarice changed the subject, but her mind was restless. The more she learned about this human, the more she wanted to understand the mystery behind him. Meanwhile, General Kareth's doubts only grew stronger. He could not accept that a simple human had achieved what Valeri commanders had failed to do for centuries. He began to dig deeper into Sol's past. Late at night, in the dark halls of the Royal Archives, Kareth searched through restricted data from Earth. After many days, he found a name, Project Dawnfire. It appeared only once, connected to Sol Rivers. But the files were locked under top-level encryption, erased from official records. What is Project Dawnfire? Kareth muttered. And why was it hidden? He sent secret messages to his informants on Earth, but even they could find nothing. Every trace of the project had vanished, as if it had never existed. That only made Kareth more suspicious. One evening, a celebration was held in the palace gardens to mark the peace with the colonies. The air was filled with soft music and lights that floated like tiny stars. Avarice stood beside Sul, speaking with her council members, when suddenly the sound of metal broke through the melody, a flash of light, and then chaos. An assassin leaped from the shadows, his blade glowing with toxic energy. Guards shouted, drawing weapons, but the attack was too fast. The blade was already aimed at the Queen's heart. In that instant, Sul moved. No one saw how. One moment he was beside the Queen, the next he was in front of her. His hand shot forward, catching the assassin's arm. A burst of strange light flared around them, not the glow of any weapon, but something alive. The assassin screamed and fell unconscious. The entire court froze. Sol stood still, his hand faintly glowing with soft golden light. The energy faded quickly, but everyone had seen it. Avaris stared in shock. "So, what was that?" He looked down at his hand, then at her. "It's something I hoped I'd never have to use." The guards dragged the assassin away. No one dared speak. The celebration ended in silence. Later that night, Avaris called Sol to her private chamber. The stars outside shone pale and distant. She looked at him with calm but firm eyes. "I need the truth," she said. "What happened in the garden?" "No human can do what you did," Sol hesitated. For a long moment he said nothing. Then quietly he spoke. "There was a project on Earth many years ago. Project Dawnfire. I was part of it." "What was it?" The Queen asked. "It was meant to study the effects of energy from dying stars. We wanted to understand how light could be used to heal, to power, to protect. But something went wrong. The radiation changed us. A few of us survived, but we were different afterward. Different how? I can see energy patterns," Sol said. "I can sense danger, and sometimes I can use the light around me. But it costs me greatly. I don't use it unless I must." Avaris listened, her heart beating fast. She had seen powerful warriors, but never someone who could control energy itself. "Why did you hide this?" she asked softly. "Because I didn't want fear," Sol said. "I wanted peace. If people knew, they would see me as a weapon, not a man." The Queen looked at him in silence. She saw no pride in his eyes, only truth and calm sadness. Finally, she nodded. "Then I will keep your secret. But know this, Sol Rivers. You are not weak, and you never were." Sol bowed his head. "Thank you, Your Majesty." As he left the room, Avaris stood by the window, staring at the stars. Her thoughts were filled with questions. What else was this human capable of? And why did she feel her heart change every time he spoke? Outside, General Kareth watched from the shadows. He had seen the glow, too. Now he knew the human was not ordinary. But was he a blessing to the Queen? Or a danger waiting to rise? As the twin suns began to rise over Valara Prime, Sol walked through the quiet gardens, unaware that his true test was yet to come. Because far beyond the edge of the Empire, a new threat was awakening. One that would make both humans and Valari question everything they believed about power. And soon, the galaxy would see what a single human could truly do. Days passed since the night of the assassination attempt, but the memory stayed fresh in everyone's mind. The image of Sol standing in the glow of that strange golden light spread quickly through the palace. Servants whispered about it in the corridors, and the nobles spoke of it in fear and curiosity. Some said the human possessed secret weapons. Others believed he used forbidden magic. Only Queen Avaris knew the truth, but she kept her promise and spoke to no one. Still, the peace that had settled over the Valeri Empire after the marriage began to tremble. A new and dark message arrived from the border worlds. The Zynar Dominion, a race older than both humans and Valari, had returned from the void. They were known for their massive warships and strange shadow-like energy that could drain the life from planets. For centuries they had been silent. Now they were awake, and they wanted the Valari Empire to submit. A war council was called in the Queen's Great Hall. Holographic maps floated above the crystal table, showing entire star systems turning red as the Zynar fleets advanced. General Kareth stood stiff and proud. "Their ships outnumber ours 10-1. Their technology is different from anything we've faced. We must prepare the main fleet and strike first before they reach the capital." Another general argued, "If we attack, we might lose everything. We should defend and wait for their mistake." Queen Avaris listened in silence, her golden eyes moving between them. Finally, she turned to Sol, who had been standing quietly at the edge of the room. "What do you think, Sol Rivers?" she asked. The council fell silent. Many nobles frowned. They still did not believe a human should speak in matters of war. Sol studied the map carefully. "The Zynar fight with fear," he said calmly. "They want you to panic. If we rush into battle, they'll crush us. But if we make them chase us, if we control the field, we can break their confidence." General Kareth raised an eyebrow. "Control the field? You think your human tactics will work against them?" Sol looked at him without anger. "War is not only about numbers, General. It's about how you think." Queen Avaris smiled slightly. "Continue." Sol walked closer to the map. He moved his fingers, rearranging the glowing shapes. "If we pull the outer fleets back toward the twin moons of Karis, they'll follow. The moons create a strong gravity field, enough to slow their movement. Then we strike from behind using smaller, faster ships. They'll be trapped." Kareth hesitated. It was a simple plan, but brilliant. That might actually work, he admitted quietly. Avaris nodded. Then it is decided. Sol Rivers will lead the defense. The room erupted in surprise. Your Majesty, one noble cried. A human cannot command Valari fleets. Avaris's voice turned cold. He has already proven his wisdom. You will follow his command. And with that, the decision was made. 2 days later, Sol stood aboard the flagship Radiant Spear, staring at the stars. The bridge crew moved around him, half curious, half doubtful. But when the battle began, doubt turned into awe. The Xynar fleet entered the system like a storm of darkness, their ships glowing with black fire. But Sol was calm. His voice over the command channel was steady. Hold position, he said. Let them come closer. The Valari officers exchanged nervous glances. Sir, they're within range. Not yet, Sol replied. Wait. Seconds stretched like hours. Then Sol's eyes flashed with faint golden light. Now, the fleet moved as one. The outer ships retreated toward the moons just as planned. The Xynar followed, their massive vessels slowing as the gravity wells pulled at them. Then Sol gave the final command. All wings, strike from behind. Dozens of Valari cruisers shot out of hiding, cutting through the dark enemy ranks. Explosions of light filled space. The Xynar fleet twisted, trying to escape the trap, but it was too late. From the observation deck, Queen Avaris watched the battle through a holoscreen. He did it, she whispered. He's actually doing it. The humans back on Earth called this kind of tactic the dance of patience. The Valari had never seen anything like it. When the battle ended, half the Xynar fleet was destroyed, and the rest retreated into deep space. The Valari cheered, their pride restored, but Sol didn't celebrate. He looked at the wreckage of ships drifting among the stars and said softly, "Victory means nothing if we forget mercy." After the battle, the Queen visited him in the command chamber. "You have given my people hope," she said. "They see now that you are more than what they thought." Sol smiled a little. "Hope is stronger than fear, Your Majesty. It always will be." But deep inside, he knew the war was not over. The Xynar Dominion would not forget this defeat. Weeks later, their revenge came. A single Xynar dreadnought appeared near the capital system, larger than any Valari city. It fired a beam of dark energy that tore through defense satellites as if they were paper. The palace shook as alarms echoed through the halls. Avaris stood on her balcony watching the sky burn. Kareth ran to her side. "Your Majesty, the shields are failing." "Where is Sol?" she demanded. "He's aboard the Radiant Spear trying to stop them." Avaris's heart pounded. She rushed to the communication chamber. The screen lit up with Sol's image. Calm, focused, his face lit by golden light from the control panels. "Sol," she said quickly, "you must retreat. That ship is too powerful." He shook his head. "If I retreat, the capital will fall. I have to stop them here. Then let me send reinforcements. There's no time. Trust me," Avaris froze. Those words, "trust me," were the same ones he had spoken on the day they first met. Something inside her told her to believe him. "Be careful," she whispered. Sol smiled faintly. "Always." The signal ended. On the bridge of the Radiant Spear, Sol stood in front of the main window. The Xynar dreadnought filled the sky like a black sun. He could feel its power. Cold, heavy, endless. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The faint golden light began to return, spreading across his hands and skin like sunlight breaking through clouds. "Captain," he said quietly, "divert all remaining power to the main shields." "But sir, do it." The ship trembled as the energy systems changed. The golden glow spread through the bridge, gentle yet strong. The crew stared in awe. Then Sol raised his hand toward the screen. His voice was calm but full of power. "You will not take this world." A beam of golden light burst from the Radiant Spear, meeting the Xynar's dark energy head-on. The two forces collided, shaking the very fabric of space. For a moment it looked as if the darkness would consume everything. But then Sol's light grew brighter, fed by his will. "Hold together," he whispered. "For them, for peace." The beam pushed forward, cutting through the dark energy. The Xynar dreadnought began to break apart, its black fire collapsing inward. Finally, with a silent flash, it exploded into 1,000 fragments. The Radiant Spear drifted quietly in the aftermath. The crew cheered, but Sol collapsed to his knees, breathing heavily. The light faded from his skin. When the Queen arrived later, she found him resting in the medical chamber, weak but alive. She sat beside him, her armor still stained from battle dust. "You saved us all," she said softly. Sol smiled tiredly. "No. We saved each other." "You could have died," she whispered. He looked at her and said gently, "Every life is worth the risk if it protects peace." For a long moment, Avaris said nothing. Then she placed her hand on his. "You are not only my husband, Sol Rivers. You are the heart of this empire." Sol's eyes softened. "Then may its heart always choose light." Outside the window, the stars seemed to shine brighter, as if the galaxy itself had witnessed the birth of something new. Not a weapon, not a ruler, but a symbol of unity between two distant worlds, yet far away. In the dark reaches of space, the remaining Xynar ships gathered once more. Their supreme commander, a being of pure shadow, watched the recordings of the battle. "This human," it hissed, "has touched the light of stars. But every light casts a shadow. We will return." And thus a new storm began to form, one that would test not only Sol's strength but also his spirit. The galaxy had celebrated the victory over the Xynar dreadnought, but peace was fragile. Queen Avaris could sense it. Reports came from the edge of known space, a shadow larger than any fleet the Valari had ever seen. The Xynar Dominion was regrouping. Their supreme commander, an ancient being whose existence predated the Valari Empire itself, had emerged from the void. Its energy was unlike anything in the galaxy, dark and twisting, capable of bending reality. Entire planets had been consumed in its path. "Your Majesty," General Kareth said grimly, "we are not prepared for this. Even Sol may struggle against such power." Avaris shook her head. "He has faced the impossible before. We must trust him." Kareth's jaw tightened. "I do not like trusting humans. Their ways are unpredictable." Avaris turned, her golden eyes sharp. "Then perhaps you have not learned what it means to lead with wisdom instead of pride." Sol studied the incoming Xynar fleet aboard the Radiant Spear. He stood in the observation chamber, hands clasped behind his back. His golden eyes reflected the approaching shadows. The fleet was enormous, far larger than the Valari could confront head-on. But Sol did not panic. He had spent years preparing, not just in battle but in understanding patterns, energy flows, and the ways of the universe. "The Dominion seeks fear," he said quietly. "We will give them strategy instead." Dr. Loon, his old Earth friend and scientist, monitored the readings from nearby systems. "So, the energy readings are off the charts. If they fire, entire star systems could collapse." He nodded. "Then we make sure they don't fire." The Radiant Spear led the Valari fleet toward the binary stars of Zephyra, a dangerous system with twin suns and dense asteroid belts. Most commanders feared it, but Sol saw opportunity. "The Xynar will think we are trapped," he explained to Avaris via holocommunication. "The gravity wells of the twin stars will slow their movement just like last time. But this time we have more than ships. We have knowledge and energy." "What do you mean?" she asked. Sol raised his hand and faint golden light shimmered along his fingers. "I can amplify the energy of the stars with the Dawnfire's core. We can create a solar flare to strike the enemy fleet. It will be controlled, precise, and overwhelming." Avaris's eyes widened. "You risk yourself for this?" He shook his head. "I risk myself so that the people of both our species survive. That is all." The battle began as the Xynar fleet approached Zephyra. Shadows stretched across the void, black ships moving in perfect formation. Even the most experienced Valari commanders were tense. "Stay calm," Sol said to the bridge crew. "Follow my lead. Watch the patterns of their ships. Predict, don't react." The Radiant Spear moved into the center of the system, the twin suns flaring in the background. Sol extended his hands, channeling energy into the ship's core. The Dawnfire ship pulsed with golden light, its energy intertwining with his own. A tremor ran through the fleet as the stars themselves seemed to respond. Asteroids shifted, gravity wells shifted subtly, and the Xynar found themselves caught off guard. "Now," Sol commanded. The Valari fleet struck from behind. Smaller, faster ships darted through the gaps in the enemy formation, creating chaos. Xynar vessels collided, energy beams misfired, and their tight formation collapsed. From her command station, Queen Avaris watched, heart pounding. She had seen him face impossible odds before, but this time, the stakes were higher. The Xynar Supreme Commander was a being of unimaginable power. Yet Sol moved calmly, directing ships, predicting enemy movements. and even using his own light energy to shield allies. The enemy commander realized something was different. Its black energy twisted violently, striking at the radiant spear, attempting to pierce Sol's defenses. Ships were thrown like toys, asteroids spun wildly, and space itself seemed to shiver. "Hold the shields," Sol commanded. "Now we use the stars." He focused all his energy on the twin suns. Light flared around him, golden and radiant, streaming through the ship's core. The dawnfire began to glow like a miniature sun itself. "Steady," Sol whispered. "Just a little more." And then, in a brilliant surge, he released the energy. A controlled solar flare erupted, amplified by the dawnfire and guided by Sol's own power. The flare swept across the battlefield, hitting the Xenar fleet head-on. Ships shattered instantly, their dark energy unraveling in the light. The Supreme Commander roared, a sound that shook the vacuum of space, and tried to retreat. But Sol had predicted it. Smaller ships blocked the exit, trapping it in the binary system. With one final surge of energy, Sol focused the dawnfire's power, and the Supreme Commander's ship exploded in a flash that outshone both stars. Pieces of dark energy scattered into the void. The battle was over. The Valari fleet cheered, though many were exhausted and battered. Sol stood at the center of the Radiant Spear's bridge, breathing heavily, drained from the energy he had poured into the solar flare. His golden glow faded slowly, leaving him pale and weak. Queen Avaris rushed to his side as soon as she could. "Sol!" she exclaimed, catching him before he collapsed. He smiled faintly, too tired to speak. "It's done," he whispered. "You've done more than anyone could imagine," she said softly, helping him to a chair. "You've saved the Empire, our people, everyone." Sol looked at her with quiet pride. "We saved each other," he said. For the first time, the Queen truly understood the magnitude of his strength. It was not in weapons, rank, or armies. It was in his mind, his heart, and the way he used his unusual power to protect life. The Valari Empire celebrated for days. Messages of peace and admiration arrived from distant colonies. Humans across their system sent greetings, hailing Sol as a hero. Statues would later be made in his honor, but Sol never sought fame. He cared only for the people, for the peace, and for unity between humans and Valari. Yet the Supreme Commander's voice lingered, even in defeat. Far in the void, among the debris of the Xenar fleet, the shadow being gathered fragments of its energy, its eyes burned with hatred and cunning. "This human, this soul? He has touched the light of the stars," it hissed. "But light and shadow are two halves of the same coin. I will return, and next time the galaxy will fall." Weeks later, Sol walked through the palace gardens with Avaris. Flowers shimmered under the twin suns' light. The battle was over, but Sol's energy had not fully returned. He walked slowly, leaning on a staff that glowed faintly with residual light. "You have done more than anyone could ask," Avaris said, "yet you carry this burden alone." He smiled gently. "I do not carry it alone. I have you, the people, and hope itself. That is enough." Avaris studied him quietly. "You are not just a husband or a human, Sol Rivers. You are a symbol of everything we can achieve together." Sol looked at her and said softly, "Then let our future be one where fear is never stronger than hope." The Queen placed her hand on his, warmth passing between them. "We will rebuild. We will teach the galaxy what it means to be united, and your story will inspire generations." Sol nodded, eyes toward the stars. "Then let us begin." But in the darkness beyond Valari space, a new storm was brewing. The remnants of the Xenar Dominion were gathering, learning from their defeat. And though the galaxy now knew the power of one human, Sol Rivers, the next challenge would push him to the limits of his courage, his mind, and his strength. And when that day came, only the unity of humans and Valari together could hope to survive. The galaxy had barely recovered from the destruction of the Xenar Supreme Commander's dreadnought when a warning arrived from the far edges of Valari space. Scattered remnants of the Xenar Dominion were regrouping, but more alarmingly, a new commander had emerged, a being more cunning and powerful than any Sol or the Valari had faced before. Queen Avaris called the council immediately. Holographic star maps displayed fleets forming beyond the outer rim, their numbers and energy readings frighteningly high. General Kareth clenched his fists. "We have seen power, Your Majesty, but this is beyond anything in our history. The Empire cannot withstand them." Avaris's gaze turned to Sol, who stood quietly at the edge of the council chamber. His expression was calm, even serene. "We will withstand them," he said softly. Not through fear, but through unity, strategy, and courage. Kareth's eyes narrowed. Do you truly believe a human can face what we cannot? Sol turned slowly, his golden eyes glowing faintly. It is not the species that wins battles, General. It is the heart of those who fight together. Preparations began immediately. Valkyrie fleets and human ships were combined into a single force, trained under Sol's guidance. For the first time, humans and Valkyrie moved in perfect synchronization. Sol taught them how to anticipate enemy movements, using energy readings and patterns that only he could detect. The Zynar commander is patient, Sol explained. They will wait for us to make mistakes. We cannot give them that advantage. Every movement must be deliberate, precise, and unified. Queen Avaris watched him with awe. She had always admired his mind, but now she began to understand the true extent of his strength. Not his ability to use energy, though that was remarkable, but his ability to inspire others to do what they believed was impossible. The final battle took place near the twin suns of Zephyra, the same system where Sol had first displayed his power. The Zynar fleet was immense, their dark ships like black mountains against the stars. Their new commander, a shadowy being radiating pure energy, led them from a massive flagship. Its presence alone distorted space, bending light and gravity in unnatural ways. The Valkyrie fleet shivered in formation. Even the most seasoned captains whispered prayers to the stars. But Sol stood calmly on the bridge of the Dawnfire, now fully prepared for the confrontation. The ship pulsed with golden light, a symbol of hope and human ingenuity combined with Valkyrie technology. Listen to me, Sol said to the crews over the comms. Do not fear them. Watch their patterns. Trust your training. And above all, trust each other. A murmur of determination ran through the fleet. Sol's words carried more weight than any weapon. As the Zynar approached, Sol raised his hand, drawing the energy of the twin suns into the Dawnfire's core. The light glowed around him, golden and bright, filling the observation deck with warmth. He could feel the energy flow through his body, a dangerous but exhilarating power. Queen Avaris, observing from her flagship, whispered to herself, I have never seen a being like him. Not human, not Valkyrie, something greater. The fleets collided. The Zynar commander fired waves of dark energy that shattered shields and twisted space itself. Valkyrie and human ships dodged, but losses were mounting. Sol's eyes glowed brighter. He focused, extending his hands toward the stars. His energy merged with the Dawnfire's core, and a golden shield expanded around the fleet, absorbing the dark blasts. Then with precise timing he released the energy, striking the Zynar flagship directly. The beam of light was blinding. The enemy commander howled, trying to resist, but the energy was too much, precise and controlled. The darkness began to unravel piece by piece until the flagship exploded in a cascade of bright energy that lit up the entire system. Even as the fleet cheered, the battle was not over. The remaining Zynar ships tried to flee, but Sol anticipated every move. Using his ability to sense energy patterns, he directed the Valkyrie and human ships to intercept them. One by one, enemy vessels were captured or destroyed. Finally, only the commander remained, the shadow being wounded but alive, hiding in the far reaches of Zephyra's asteroid belt. Sol piloted the Dawnfire directly toward it. The shadow creature tried to strike, sending waves of dark energy, but Sol's control was flawless. He absorbed the energy, turning it back into light that strengthened the fleet's shields. You cannot win through fear, Sol said calmly, voice carrying through space. You cannot win against hope. With one final surge, he focused all his power, amplified by the twin suns. The shadow being screamed as light consumed it, and at last it vanished. Defeated, its energy scattered into the stars. The galaxy was silent for a moment, as if the universe itself was recovering. Then the fleets erupted in cheers. Valkyrie and human ships celebrated together, their joy mingled with relief. Queen Avaris rushed to the Dawnfire as soon as she could. Sol was standing, exhausted but alive, golden light fading slowly from his body. You've done it, she said softly, her eyes filled with admiration. You've defeated them all, Sol smiled faintly. No, we did it together. She placed her hand on his, warmth passing between them. You have shown the galaxy that strength is not just power. It is courage, wisdom, and unity. He looked at her, eyes tired but kind. Then let us make sure the galaxy never forgets it. In the days following the battle, the Valari Empire and human colonies worked together to rebuild. Systems destroyed by the Xynar were repaired, trade routes reopened, and families reunited. Sol did not seek recognition. He focused on helping those in need, teaching both humans and Valari the value of knowledge, cooperation, and compassion. Stories spread across the stars. Children learned about the human who could see the patterns of energy, who had saved the Valari Empire not through domination, but through understanding and courage. They called him Sol the Light-Bearer, the man who proved that humanity's greatest strength was its heart. Queen Avarice, proud and deeply grateful, often walked with him through the gardens of Valara Prime. "Do you ever tire of this?" she asked one evening. Sol looked at the twin suns setting over the horizon. "I am tired," he admitted. "But when I see hope, when I see peace, I know it is worth every moment," she smiled. "You have changed everything. Not just for us, but for all species." Sol nodded. "Then let that change continue. Let it inspire future generations, human, Valari, and beyond." Months later, the palace held a grand ceremony to honor the bravery and unity of the people. Sol was recognized not as a warrior, but as a teacher, a guide, and a symbol. Statues would be built, songs composed, and stories told in his name. Yet he remained humble, never letting fame overshadow his true purpose. One evening, Queen Avarice asked him, "Sul, what do you truly wish for?" He smiled, looking at the stars. "For our children, human, Valari, or any child in the galaxy, to never know fear the way we did. To grow up in a universe where unity and courage are stronger than darkness." The queen placed her hand on his shoulder. "Then we will make sure that happens." And so the legend of Sol Rivers grew. Across hundreds of star systems, the story of the human who had defeated an ancient and powerful enemy without seeking war became a symbol of hope and inspiration. Even the Valari, proud and strong as they were, learned from him. They learned that strength was not just in fleets, energy shields, or combat skills. True strength was in the mind that could think, the heart that could care, and the courage to act when the universe seemed hopeless. Sol did not need to rule with force. He ruled with example, the example of a human who had shown that the greatest power in the galaxy was humanity itself. And as long as the stars shone over Valara Prime, and the twin suns lit the horizon, the story of Sol Rivers, the human who surprised the alien queen and the galaxy, would be told for generations to come.